Hello everybody, welcome back to Punk Right. My name is Smee. One of the reasons I decided to self-publish my book SCARBOYS was, I guess, a little bit of selfishness because I wanted to have complete control of the process. I find the whole thing of making these beautiful little packages just so inspiring. It's a work of art from the beginning to the end. Of course, we do judge a book by the cover. I'm not a professional graphic designer, but I have been using Photoshop and InDesign for a couple of years, and I do have enough of base knowledge to make something that I think is pretty cool. And I want to emphasize that if you're interested in having complete control over your process as an independent author, you can do it. You just have to learn a few basic tools, watch a lot of YouTube videos, and figure out what model is best for you in terms of making the cover design that you want to make. I will say that I floated a lot of my sample book covers out to different groups on Facebook, and I got some pretty interesting feedback. Some people liked it, some people didn't like it. I personally love it. The most important thing is that it's mine. I made it. I own it. And that's the beauty of self-publishing. One of the things that I got as a piece of critique about the book is it doesn't really fit the genre. But you know, when I put my book cover up against other books of similar dystopian or adventure type novels, I know that it's pretty unique looking. It may not fit perfectly, but I think that's kind of the coolest part about being punk. You can do it yourself. There's some essential qualities you're going to get right, but other than that, you have full liberty to create the book cover that you want. On today's episode of Punk Right, stick around. I'm going to take you through the major steps of Photoshop that I use to be able to create my book cover for SCARBOYS. Don't go anywhere. What you're looking at is the full layout of the spread and the spine and the back cover of my book that I created. As an independent author, it's it's very demanding in terms of finding the right skill set to be able to do this, but I think you can figure out enough to be able to do something pretty interesting and cool and unique, and I'm going to take you through that today. So let's get into it. First thing that I would suggest is that you create on your desktop somewhere where you're going to keep all of your work. And inside your folder, you're going to want to just organize a little bit. And I have a couple of things that are essential. The first, of course, is the template that you have downloaded from Amazon or Barnes & Nobles. I have another one for a hardback here. These allow you to get the right dimensions when you set up your document. I'll come back to this in a moment. The other thing I have in here are other different photo samples that I've used, some of which I've actually started to work with, and I'll use these. And I have some concepts that I was playing with so that when I get to my final product, I kind of have an idea where I'm going. And you can see I've got a lot of different old designs here that, again, I just was playing with until I found something that I liked. Here's one that I'll show you that it was okay. It was interesting, but I learned a lot, and there are a lot of things I didn't like about it. And I incorporated some feedback. I suggest that you do the same. And you might want to have some specific logos that you're going to make first. This is my publishing logo that I'm going to use on my cover. But right now I'm going to go in. I'm going to open up the PDF with Adobe Photoshop. And there are a couple things I'm going to take care of. They do some default here, but I want to make sure my resolution is high enough. These are in 300. I wouldn't go anything lower than that. Make sure that your measurements are in inches, and let's see what this looks like. Put some thumbnail, fit page, there it is. Now again, this is just a template that's defaulted into a layer, and this is going to give me the correct dimensionality that they've outlined here in numbers. Again, 5 by 5 by 8.5 is the inch measurement for just one side. So this is a similar measurement. And if I zoom in here, you can see that they also give you a spine width. All of that's important. What is important to pay attention to are the lines that they've given you as margins that we're going to use as guidelines ourselves. So to add guidelines, I'm going to go to my Photoshop top toolbar here. I'm going to go to view. And again, I just want to stress that the most important thing is that we get the proportionality of the document correct. If for some reason when you go with the final copy to input it into Amazon or whatever platform and it doesn't seem to fit, you can always come back and make adjustments to the entire page much more easily as long as the dimensions and the proportions are correct. So I'm going to add some new guides. in that new guide, it's going to start with a vertical one, and it's going to put it right here on the edge. Now, what I'm looking at on the edge are a couple of different lines and colors. This dotted line is going to be the edge of the actual visual page. The left line is what we call the bleed. This is usually what is cut off or folded over, so you're not going to see that. If you work past this line, know that it's going to be eliminated. And then you have the inner margin here highlighted in red. That inner margin is basically a place telling you to stop so that you don't put any text or important things just to get too close to the edge. And that is just a little bit of work. I'm going to add another one and just build some guides. And once I get those in there, I can grab them and move them and put them right on the lines as I like to make sure that my guidelines are going to be perfect. And I'm going to do that for horizontal and let's do a horizontal one. The horizontal one puts it right on the edge, and I'm going to build that all the way across. Okay, now that I've got all of my guidelines created, you can see that I've got quite a few things going on here. And all I've done is mark or delineate the areas where they've found important. I'm going to hide this for a second so we can see what the spread looks like. So this is my front cover, this is the spine, and this is the back cover. And what I'm concerned about are these edges right here. This is going to be the book fold on the spine, so I want to stay away from those. Now, there are two things that you need to think about first when you design spreads. And I tend to think backwards or, the background layer as the primary layer, but I actually want to get into making the title because I had an idea for what my title should look like, and I wanted to build some letters out of scars. And so I went and I pulled some just images of scars, and you can see a little bit where I'm getting these. This one is quite interesting. These are called keloid scars, and they're raised and they have some texture. And in a perfect world, I would have made my book with an imprint, but we'll just start with the scar. So I'm going to go in and open this inside Photoshop. This is a totally different document. Create a layer from the background. And as I got into working with this scar, I also liked this skin area around here, and I think I might use this for the actual background. But right now I'm primarily concerned with the scar so I can build some text. And before I get into anything, I want to make sure that my image size is at 300. That gives me plenty of pixels to be able to deal with it. And now I have a nice big scar, and I'm just going to go and cut this out. There are a couple ways to do this, but I think I might just use the eraser tool first and see what this gives me. Yeah, that's fine. That'll be fine for what I need. And I also like a little bit of blurriness. And you could use the polygon lasso tool, but for what I'm going to do, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. In fact, I don't necessarily want it to be perfect because I need some fluidness on the edge of the scar. Okay, now that I've selected out my scar, all I want to do is isolate the scar. So I'm going to go to my quick selection tool and make sure I'm on the positive selection and just select the entire piece there. And I'm just going to make a copy of this and paste it right over and hide that layer behind so I have the scar isolated. I need a little bit of a bigger canvas to work with, so I'm going to increase the size here and just crop that out because what I want to do is start building letters. I just went one by one by selecting a certain section of it. Let's say I can make an A, an S. I'm going to free transform, and I can just rotate that and build without really much difficulty. And I was quite surprised. And when it gets close, you can just build this together. Now you can you can try to do this manually, but there are some quick tools that can help. The issues that you're going to have to deal with when you build something like this are these hard edges here, but there are some ways around that. Let me just do another one so I have a little bit of an idea of where I'm going with this. And I'm going to free transform, Command T, rotate that around. Let's say I'm making an S or something similar. And now deselect. You can see I can clean these up. The first thing I'm going to do just to clean it up is to make sure I have the shape correct. So I go to my eraser tool, and I'm just going to erase some of those harder edges, and you can see it's already taking form. But again, what I'm really concerned with are these sharp edges here. I want to make that as clean as possible. So I'm going to just draw this out and select an area. And one of these, without doing too much work myself, I can work on some blending. Actually, I'm going to choose a different tool. I'm going to choose my lasso tool. It doesn't have to be that neat because I can always go back. I'm just going to select the area, and I can right click, and I'm going to use a fill option of content aware, and that's going to read all of the area around. You can see it blends that scar quite nicely. So when I'm in a high resolution, as I go out, you can hardly tell that it's not meant to be one. And this is the way that I built all of my letters. I'm going to do that right now. It took me a long time. Okay, I've done quite a bit of work now, and I've already created all of the forms of the letters. And I was a little bit sloppy, but it doesn't really matter because this is going to be smoothed out later. And remember, this is high resolution, so it's going to be okay. And I've also added another second copy to the spine because I want the same type of text. So I'll work with the main title here. And again, I can see my guidelines here, but I don't really need that, or my template. I don't need that at this point because I'm relatively comfortable with what I'm looking at. In this, I'm just going to move in free transform, Command T, and move this around to where I want. And this is how I made it fit so that it worked within the diagonal of the page. I considered using a straight one, but it didn't seem to work best because I wanted to create some spaces down here for the caption title and then the main author title at the top, excuse me. Now let's move on to the background, which was the skin. At this point, I'm going to start working on the background image of the book cover. And I wanted to give the scar effect over skin because that's important to the theme of the story. So I just pulled a stock photo of skin, which I'm going to manipulate and make it work. So I'm going to approximate the size of the book cover, which I will change. And what I'm really looking for is just the texture because I plan on manipulating it more. And I have to deal with all of these extra spaces here, which is no problem. I'm going to highlight this and use what is called the fill tool. And just to give me a content aware so that it will emulate a single wide piece of skin. And that's pretty good, actually. Again, I'm not too worried about it because I'm going to create some textures on this just to create a sense of skin. I'm really more interested in a surreal effect, and I'm just continue to do that here. We'll see what this looks like. That's cool. And it's actually all right for me too. There are some repetitions, but it doesn't bother me. I'm going to work on the back, and if I imagine this backside is going to be covered with text as well. So this is not perfect as I want it. I'm going to create a layer from this because I want to create some different filters, and I want to create a more, some sort of distortion of the skin. And I'm not really sure what I'm going to choose, so I'm going to go away, and when I come back, it'll work. All right, this is cool. It's working out. Is now that I have, kind of the general layout, and I put my on the guidelines over it so I can see kind of where things are going to fall. And you can see I've also added down here the title and the spine title. So that's kind of what the layout is going to look like. I'm not really done with these letters yet because I want to do two things. First, I want to add a little bit of texture to the background, and then I want to work with this title a little bit because it seems a bit too bold, and I want it to look more like a scar. And then I'm going to merge these together. So I'm going to hide these for a second, just look at my background, and I'm going to choose my pen tool or my pencil tool. Make sure I'm on the right background. And I just want to add some light lines, and these are hardly going to be visible, but you'll see the textures as they come through, and I think it's going to be a cool effect. And I did that across various parts just to give it a little bit of depth, some interesting texture, and it helps create more of a worn skin look. Once I have that, I'm going to go back to my titles. And this title is a little bit dark to me, so I'm actually going to choose some blending options so we can see what's going on here. You know, it's at pass through, but I think you can do quite a bit with these blending options here, and I think I've chosen just the normal for this, but you can see it's going to change. Oh, that's cool, darker color. Yeah, I think maybe that's the one I chose. We'll try this. And you can see in both of these the closer look to a scar. That's pretty cool. Now the problem, of course, is this is right over, I've made the lines right over this, which is not a problem. And we'll take those out. And when I have both of these where I want them, go back to my effects, give it the same one, I'll put it on darker color. Okay, now both of these are cool. I'm going to go up here to layer and merge the visible so that now these become actually one piece, so they're not separate. I can no longer move the spine. And the reason I would do that is that as I look closely at how these are blended, I want to make sure that the scar and the skin are tight. And we can do that in a couple of ways. I'm going to use the I think I'm going to use just a burn tool. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll use the blur tool and see if we can get this not so hard, because I don't want it super clean. I just want to merge these two together, and then just there you go. And it's very subtle, but it's going to help take the edge off. Okay, when I'm done with this, I'll be back. Okay, from here I'm kind of cruising now because I have the basis of the design that I want, and I've got the spine laid out, and I put an extra scar on the back, and I've done the same kind of blending so that it all is kind of acting as a single cover. I've left these spaces because I know I want to put some descriptions here. I want to put my ISBN down here, and I want to put the book description on the top, along with some other things, and the scars are a great addition to highlight what I'm trying to get at. Now, there are a couple things that I've added. I've already opened these documents. I wanted to make this, and I just pulled this from a stock document. This is graphene, and graphene is an important element to the book. And I just did some very simple cutout with this. I'm not going to show you how to do that. So this is the graphic that I want. And I've also wanted to add some element of a person to it. And I struggled with this for a while, but I've settled on this photo. This is also a stock photo. What I want is the shadow. I don't really want a person on there, but I wanted an illusion. This is a subtle thing about my cover that I really like. And I've actually gone through, and I'm just going to show you what I've created here. This is the end shadow that I've done, and all I just want the illusion of what it might look like. And I'm going to put that on here right now to show you what I've created. And again, with some blending options, I've just laid that over. And I'm going to put this down at the bottom because I want it to have a sense of, a hidden sense of the antagonist. And that's pretty cool. And similarly, I'm going to take my graphene. I'm going to put my graphene on here. That's fine. Now, this is too much, of course, but all I'm really interested in is a certain portion of it. And I want to Command T to free transform. I'm going to shrink this down, and I've added this up here, and I haven't really figured out how to do this. It took me a while to get the angle that I want and the color that I want. So let's just start with that and see where it goes. I'm going to try some blending options as well. And of course, I don't want that. That's looking better. That's cool. Something like that. And I can get just a subtle texture that fits in. And I would just play with this for a while till you find something that you want. Yeah, so this is cool. I finally settled on, kind of the shadow of Contrive, the character, and I've put this graphene aspect in. I tried to imagine the book as it would be closed. And one of the things I did here is I wanted to play with the perspective a little bit, so I did skew it a little bit just to give it a bit of an angle. And you can, you try these things so that it works with whatever you're trying to, trying to get the effect that you're trying to get. And I have to keep in mind that I need to put my title over here, my name, and of course I have a subtitle here. Now at this point, it's pretty much just easy sailing. It's just dealing with texts and images that I've already created. The first thing I'm going to add, of course, I want to see what my name looks like. I put my name in a nice bold. I wanted black because it contrasts with the skin color. And I really like what's going on here with the way that this kind of leading line has worked out. And I like the graphene on top. Now, it's a bit overbearing, but I'm going to add, when I add, actually my name to the top, you can see that it's a nice transition into some element of the book, and the contrast of A.J. Smee is very clear. So the author's name appears, and I wanted to add some sort of title, but I wanted to use the same font, and you can see that I've spread these fonts out just a little bit so that they're not too close together, and they give you a little bit of sense of space on the front. And there's my front cover, which I really like. I took the liberty and just added a couple of different other aspects. And one of the things you have to be careful with is your ISBN number. And this is generated. You can generate it in a couple ways. There are some free, if you have bought an ISBN number from Bowker, you can also put this into free barcode generators, which is what I did, and they give you a certain spacing on the guideline. And pay attention to this. Just hide this. You say this is the size generally that you have to deal with, and make sure you don't get it too close to the edges here. And mine seems to work out fine. And I go ahead and I have my own labels as well. I have my picture and my descriptions of my book that I've added together, and I've broken these up a little bit because I wanted to make sure that it fit around this scar here, and this is one of the dividing factors. And it looks good. There's the back. The only thing I have to add are a few of my logos, which I have my Punk Right Publishing. I have one on the spine here, and I have one. Oh, that was another idea which I didn't like. Where's my other one? And I have my back advertisements, which consist of my YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and other important details. You can put it right there in the back of the book. It's good advertisement. And voila, there it is. Let's take a look in screen mode. And it's really exciting to see what you've created. It's got lots of different elements of my book. Again, I got a little bit of criticism, or I should say critique, that didn't really fit the genre. But you know what? One of the great things about being an independent publisher is that you can do what you want to do. You don't really have to ask permission. I wanted my book cover to stand out. I think it does. I think it's quite original. It doesn't have all of the high-end professional blending options and layers, but I didn't really want that, to be honest with you. I think when people see the book cover, they see something unique and it's recognizable, which is what I was going for. If you have some basic tools, you can make something that is totally yours, totally unique, and worthy of your own book cover for whatever piece of work that you're making. This is the coolest thing. Go indie. Do it right. Punk right.